So day 2 of my solo adventure down the coast of South Africa finally started. The night's rest had been something remarkable, as this was my first time using a brand new mattress. My old one was in a pretty terrible state, full of holes and always deflating in the middle of the night. And blowing up a mattress at 2 AM is not the most fun thing you could possibly do. The new one packs up about half as small and also inflates about 3 times the thickness, which makes it a lot better than my old one. My plans for today were mostly to head down to Jeffreys Bay, where it's been quite a while since I've done some surfing. And after doing some surfing, I'd be heading up north to Kudu Kaya at the start of the Baviaanskloof. And so my day started. After packing up my tent, it was finally time to go. And after a quick wave goodbye to the family I had eaten a delicious dinner the previous night, I set out on my journey. It was a quick stretch down to Jeffreys Bay, where it was still pretty early in the morning and I was on time, on schedule, ready to get a surfboard at a local store and head out and hit the waves. And after meeting the wonderful people who run the local surf shop on the beach, I quickly got a board and a wetsuit and set out. On my journey I also met Tom, with an H, short for Thomas, who was kind enough to give me a ride down to the better swells. He also was a lot more experienced than I was with the whole surfing thing, so he definitely gave me a couple of tips before we hit the water. Thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate everything you guys did for me, and good luck with the waves, man. Soon after we hit the water, and obviously your shoulders start aching pretty much as soon as you get into it. The water itself was pretty nice. It was a lovely day. Although it was still a bit quiet in the beginning, soon the waves would rather start to pick up. A big part about surfing, especially if you're a beginner like this guy, then waiting is a big part of the whole game. If you don't know much about the tides and keeping an eye on the swells and also where to place yourself in the ocean, it becomes a pretty tedious process trying to figure this out. Luckily the surfing community is really open and I was talking to a lot of people and learning a lot. Some of the more experienced surfers were doing a pretty good job at it, while I was just watching in amazement. And after Tom gave me a quick demonstration of how a turtle roll works, I tried it out for myself. All in all, after nearly dying once or twice, the waves were starting to pick up and the swells were getting bigger. This in a way was a good thing because we came to surf, but it was also a bit scary because there were a lot of other people trying to surf as well. And with this many people in the ocean at once, it's pretty tough knowing when to time your shots because whoever gets on the wave first, it's his wave. Here in the background you can really see how it's done. Here and there I obviously did my best to catch a wave, but either my timing was a bit out or my positioning in the ocean was a bit out, and after almost dying another once or twice and almost getting run over, I decided I had looked enough like an idiot in the water and it was about time to get out. Unfortunately, Jeffries has strict water regulations at the moment, so none of the showers were working. But after buying a quick 5 litre of water, I grabbed a quick shower. As I'm sure you can imagine, putting on an entire bike kit with salty water on your body isn't the best idea. And so I set out of Jeffreys Bay at about 12:15. I was right on schedule and I was heading up north through Imansdorp. Next up, hitting Hankey, Potensi, and then eating at a lovely restaurant called Padlangs before hitting Cambria. The roads had some lovely bends in them, and eventually I came across my first river crossing. I had put this river crossing in my route on purpose, but upon reaching it, I asked one of the locals sitting nearby how deep it was, and after some risk assessment, I decided that it wasn't worth risking taking on water damage, and rather just continuing onwards. Of course, obviously I wanted to just hit it, but I felt like this was more of the expedition decision to make. Some slight rain started to fall, and I had recently had a big, tough time with rain, but luckily I was prepared. And just as I was about to put on my rain suit, I finally arrived at Padlangs, where I'd be eating. At Padlangs, I also came to meet Wamodini, someone I would spend some time talking to in the future, and find out that he also has a YouTube channel called Folk Adventure Rides. I'd be keeping an eye out for some of his stickers. They also tend to do a lot of dirt bike riding, which is something I'd love to get into more. And after asking for a bucket or two of ice, I filled up my camelback and it was time to head out. I had a small bit of road left to reach Kudu Kaya, which was located just past Cambria. And Kudu Kaya is famous for its amazing water pools and water valleys that you can swim up. And along with all of these amazing water pools, there are also exotic birds here that a lot of famous bird watchers like to come and check out. So with a lot to look forward to, I was really trying to get there quick as possible to make sure that I could see everything that was to be seen there. I made a quick pit stop at the entrance to the Baviaanskloof. I had to check that everything was fine so that I would be sure to make it all the way to the end. One thing that I did however overlook was that I thought I'd be able to fill up petrol one last time in Cambria, whereas Potensi was actually the final place where you could fill up petrol. At the time, obviously I wasn't aware of this, so I set out without a care in the world. And I'd soon find out if that was a grave mistake to make or something I would get lucky with. Yeah, so the valleys in the Baviaanskloof truly are remarkable, and I'd be seeing a lot of them the following day. I arrived at Kudu Kaya, and after checking in at reception, I headed onwards to discover those amazing pools I had been hearing so much about. After arriving at the camping spots, I had two spots between which I could pick. And after checking out the one that was a bit higher up, I immediately realized that none of my tent pins were going to be able to penetrate through this dirt. So I had to go down and check out the other spot. That was also an option. The bottom one was nicely tucked away in between these trees, directly next to a stream. And once again, I was also going to have the problem of not being able to get any of my tent pins into this hard rocky ground. But I saw what I was looking for. A small wooden deck would be perfect for me to set up my tent and also be very lucky with what came next. And there you go, my beautiful tent set up and some deck planking. And just as I finished setting up, the rain started to fall. Everything was getting absolutely soaked. Normally I put my boots and my Atacama bag in the front nose point of my tent. That was no longer an option, as everything was just completely getting soaked. Luckily my tent was up in time and I'd be able to sleep dry that night, but I got really lucky this time. With the rain really falling loud that night, I was very fortunate because all of that water just passed right underneath my tent through the deck planks. This was also the evening I was planning on using my gas stove to cook myself a meal. This however was no longer an option. But luckily as well, this was also the evening I met Kevin and Carol. Now Kevin and Carol immediately took me in. We had some lovely stories to share over a cup of coffee next to the campfire. And he even showed me some exotic bird nests he had been keeping an eye on. At the end of the night, they were kind enough to give me some bread, which went super nice with the rest of my dried foods which I had on the trip. Thank you so much, Kevin and Carol. Words can't describe how grateful I was. This really made for quite the exotic dinner. Finally, after having a full belly and a nice flated up mattress to sleep on, and some relaxing water drops rolling down my tent and a stream pouring outside, I was content with what had happened the day, and although I wasn't able to explore those amazing water pools due to the rain, I decided that I would be doing that the following morning before I got back on the bike. This was an amazing second day on my trip so far, and all the people I was meeting was really making it worth it. The cuts that I'd gotten from the surfing was looking a bit nasty, and my boots weren't doing it very good either, but this was just something small in comparison to the amazing experiences I was having.